The police have arrested 2 suspects and have promised to nab all those involved in the attack. The video of the attack has gone viral with the hashtag Justice for Deborah. An online petition has also been launched seeking punishment for her killers. What's more disturbing is that this is not the first such incident in Nigeria. Cases of vigilantism and people being jailed for blasphemy keep happening periodically, and in most
Hello friends, welcome once again to Look and Live. You are here with Pastor James THEDESVALLONS. In this video, we're going to share a bit of a perspective here on some of these persecutions that are taking place in various parts around the world. But for this video, we're going to focus primarily on Nigeria. Nigeria is one of those places where almost half of the populations are Christians and the other half are Muslims. However, the Christian population has been greatly reduced, and there is massive persecutions against those Christians in Nigeria. We are going to examine that today and focus on a particular woman by the name of Deborah. So here is the thing you need to know at the moment concerning that. This young lady here, what you see on your screen, eyewitness detailed brutal blasphemy of the Nigerian Christian student. What was her crime? Deborah Emmanuel, the Nigerian Christian student who was murdered by a Muslim mob last month, spent her final hours with a close friend who had shared exclusive details of the brutal killing with CNA. By the way, this is old news. Yes, it is. But it came over my desk because I felt the need to speak about this, since we're speaking about many different things going on in the world, especially in a time where people are very much calling all these just a social warrior, justice spirit kind of thing. I find it strange that the killing of Christians barely gets any attention, and that's kind of the reason why I'm bringing this to the channel. CNA is using pseudonym Mary for her for the woman's protection. A Christian herself, she nearly was killed by the same mob. Now, what was the crime of this young lady? You're gonna hear very carefully what's happening here. Here is one video with Gravitas. I'm going to let Gravitas run this one, and then we're going to come back to share some perspective as well. Let's take a listen to this.
We begin with Nigeria, where a woman has been beaten to death and set on fire on college premises. She was a student in this college. Her killers were her own classmates. What was her crime? Blasphemy. Her classmates accused her of insulting the Prophet Muhammad, and so they killed her. The incident has shocked the world. The incident took place in Nigeria's northwestern state of Sokoto. The victim has been identified as Deborah Samuel. She was a student of the Shehu Shagari College of Education. The students were upset over her comments, so they hunted her down, dragged her out of her college room, and attacked her and then set her ablaze. The details are disturbing, to say the least. The police have arrested 2 suspects and have promised to nab all those involved in the attack. The video of the attack has gone viral with the hashtag Justice for Deborah. An online petition has also been launched seeking punishment for her killers. What's more disturbing is that this is not the first such incident in Nigeria. Cases of vigilantism and people being jailed for blasphemy keep happening periodically. And in most cases, those accused of blasphemy are from the minority community. And it's not just armed vigilantism that is of concern. Terror groups like the Boko Haram frequently attack villages and kill civilians based on their beliefs. In Nigeria, Muslims constitute 53% of the population and Christians 46%. Despite this religious diversity, Nigerians remain vulnerable to sectarian persecution. Once again, this is our top focus at this hour. A disturbing, shocking incident being reported from Nigeria. A woman has been beaten to death and then set ablaze on her college premises. Her killers are her own classmates. And her crime, according to them, was blasphemy. Her classmates had accused her of insulting the Prophet Muhammad, and so they killed her. The incident naturally has shocked the world. It took place in Nigeria's northwestern state of Sokoto. And the victim has now been identified as Deborah Samuel. She was a student at the Shehu Shagari College of Education. The students were reportedly upset over her comments, so they hunted her down, dragged her out of her college room and then set her ablaze. The details of the investigation are now coming to light. The police say that they have arrested 2 suspects and have promised to nab all those who are involved in this attack. The video of the attack has gone viral. Disturbing video has now gone viral. People have been talking about it. The hashtag Justice for Deborah has gone viral. An online petition has also been launched seeking punishment for her killers. All of them were her classmates.
You get the point, right? So this is happening in Nigeria a lot more than we actually will want to believe here from the West. I got some stats that I'm looking at right now. This needs a lot more attention, especially in a world where we believe so strongly for human rights and protection. But there's another thing to this story that really is there's a political side to this thing that we need to understand as well. And concerning how is this being addressed from the world stage and how much attention is given to it. Think about it this way. We live in a world today in the West where words are being canceled because some people feel this could potentially be hate speech, or it could cause harm to certain communities. That's how serious we are when it comes to protecting people. We even go after their speech to make sure nothing bad happens to someone. I get it. But when it comes to killing and persecuting of Christians around the world, there is a silence. To a large degree, you probably never knew about this as you're watching this video, but it's happening much more than you think is possible. Now, I'm reading a little bit here coming from the cato.org. The group Open Doors, which is a really good group where you can get the stats and everything. USA figures that 360 million Christians last year live in countries where persecutions was significant. Roughly 5,600 Christians were murdered, more than 6,000 were detained or imprisoned, another 4,000 plus were kidnapped. In addition, more than 5,000 churches or other religious facilities were destroyed. There you have it. So these are things that are happening mainly coming from the East, in Africa, North Korea, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and so on. A lot of these persecutors or militia groups, and some of them are religious groups as well. Sorry. Some of the persecution that I found in many of the African nations are carried out by Islamic groups, which is another concerning thing for me as well. Not that I believe all Muslims think this way, but there is such a parallel and a repetition in their name come up over and over again in the killing of Christians, which is a bit troubling if you were to ask me. Here we are gonna continue with CBN News. Listen to what they have to say concerning some of this.
To talk about Nigeria. Now, we've been waiting for the U.S. State Department to release its countries of particular concern list, and it seemed to come out a little bit later than normal, and it came out on a Friday evening, like late afternoon, and Nigeria was not on that list. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about what the countries of particular concern list is so people can understand that?
Sure. So there's a law that was passed in the United States in 1998 called the International Religious Freedom Act. And that law requires the president every year to make a list of countries of particular concern for religious freedom. So he's supposed to identify countries where religious freedom is not protected and then either apply sanctions to those countries or waive the sanctions if there's a really good reason. But so every year, the State Department comes out with this list.
And this list is a really good guideline to understand, what is happening in other countries when it comes to religious freedom. You and I have spoken numerous times over the past year about different instances in Nigeria, and there has been a major push not only from your organization, but also other organizations in this space to get the U.S. State Department to put Nigeria on the list. What was your reaction to the timing of the release of the list, and then also to the fact that Nigeria ended up not being on it?
So this list came out, the new list came out on Friday afternoon. Like you said, that's how Washington kills news, right? This is where they announce things that they want no one to notice. But for me, it was at the end of a very long week. And earlier in the week, I had talked to two different priests from two different states in Nigeria. Really, one is in the middle of the country and one is in the deep south of the country, so quite far apart from each other. One priest in Plateau State had just visited a village where 20 Christians were killed the week before. He met a father who saw 4 of his children killed in front of his eyes. He met another father who lost 1 of his children. He saw homes that had been burned. He said, "I stood on the ashes of human beings." They tried to have a funeral for the dead, but some of the people had just been burned so badly that there was nothing to bury. That was one priest. The other priest was from a state called Enugu in the deep south. And this is a state where Christians have been relatively safe until now. But just in November 19, there was a massive attack on a Christian village in this state, and about 12 people were killed, again by jihadists from the Fulani ethnic group. And this priest told us that they knew the attack was coming, and they tried to alert the army, and they tried to get the army to come and protect them. But the army wasn't listening. And by the time the 12 people had been killed, they didn't realize it because the killers used machetes instead of guns. So they just went into people's houses at night and just butchered them silently. So this is what's going on in Nigeria every week. It's not an exaggeration. Every week, Christians are being killed in this country. There's an organized program by militias that seem to have at least the tacit cooperation of the Nigerian government to ethnically cleanse large parts of Nigeria of their Christian populations. And the U.S. has said this is not of concern.
I mean, and the thing about, there's so many things about this. And to your point, you and I have spoken about numerous stories, and we'll get into one of them that we've covered before. Really, I think the story that put this on the map for a lot of people, this issue, maybe they didn't realize until this stoning happened earlier this year. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the other day, there were also 2 busloads of people who were purportedly abducted in Nigeria as well. There have been numerous stories. It's almost a steady stream now of stories coming out. And these are the things we're hearing about, right? There's a lot that we're not hearing about. But that story you shared is really heartbreaking about the priest saying that we were basically standing on the ashes of humans. This, to me, it seems like a situation where the government there would be taking major action. You would assume if something like this were going on. Is there any indication that the Nigerian government is taking this seriously, is doing anything systematically to try to stop it?
No. There are a couple of different conflicts going on in Nigeria at the same time. The conflict that affects Christians the most is this conflict where jihadist militias from the Fulani ethnic group are attacking Christian villages in the center of the country and the south of the country, basically trying to push them off of their land and take their land for themselves. And I was in this region in February, and I saw the villages that had been destroyed with my own eyes. And what I noticed was driving to the villages from the main city, we passed military base after military base. We passed checkpoint after checkpoint. The Nigerian military is there. They just don't intervene. And what the priest in Plateau State told me when I talked to him this week was that the villagers in these Christian villages are not allowed to have guns. They try to organize self-defense groups, but they're not allowed to own weapons by the Nigerian army. But the Fulani jihadists do have weapons. They do have machine guns often. So as far as we can tell, the army is mostly there to tilt the scales in the direction of the jihadists.
And not even being able to protect yourself is such a horrifying prospect, right? That you can't even, there's nothing you can do to really protect yourself in those circumstances. You know, when we go back to earlier this year, you were there.
That's crazy, man. It's like they are allowing these people to be killed and persecuted. They can't protect themselves. And when this is happening, they do not intervene. And to top it off, the USA say this country, Nigeria primarily, since we're talking about them, is not of particular concern when it comes to religious freedom. What kind of political stuff is happening behind the scene? What is happening that is causing them to think that it doesn't matter? Could you imagine if this was happening to any other particular group in the world? Could you imagine the level of intervention and outcry? But when this is happening to Christians on a regular basis in various parts of the world, they're turning blind eyes. Only Jesus understands, especially in times like these. And I feel my heart breaks, man, for these Christians, because I'm a Christian myself and I enjoy the freedom we have here from the West. But I'm here to say we need to start thinking beyond our freedom, because there are many around the world who do not have the freedom we so dearly enjoy here from the West.
February, and after that, there was a stoning that was really heard around the world. I mean, this was something that people paid attention to. It was a college student. It was a major story. Can you reflect on that story a little bit? Because to me, and of course for you, you work in this space, you're looking at this all the time. You know what's going on there. But and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was a breakthrough moment for a lot of people, especially in America, hearing what exactly was going on there in Nigeria.
I certainly hope it was a breakthrough moment for a lot of people for Nigeria. And I had hoped that it would be a breakthrough moment in Nigeria as well. So just to recap for your listeners, this is a young Christian university student who was stoned on her campus after she was accused of blasphemy by her classmates. And what really shocked me about this case first was, you know, the killers recorded the crime and they recorded their faces while they were celebrating around her burning body. I watched that video and I wish I hadn't watched it, but no one has been arrested for her murder until today. The former vice president of Nigeria tweeted out a condemnation of the murder, and then he deleted the tweet a few hours later. The president...
This is disturbing, guys. Very disturbing. And by the way, this is so normal now. It's happening to Christians. Like I've said, this is not a one-time thing. It's happening by many different groups, being done by many different groups and so on. I've seen some videos that I wish I didn't watch either. I've seen some videos. I didn't see this particular video and I do not want to. I'm sure I can find it. If it's on WhatsApp, it's circulating. Okay, there's no stopping it. But the thing is, yeah, there's been videos that my dad has shown me, things that I don't even want to describe to you. It's cannibalism. They go as far as cannibalism. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, that's what they will do. And they will, you know, these are religious groups that are doing some of this stuff, you know, so it's repulsive. It's repulsive. And it's something we need to bring to light, because we need to ask ourselves the question, what in the world is happening here in the 20th century when it comes to persecution of Christians, and why is this not getting enough attention? And it should be. And that's what I'm talking about. The
president of Nigeria released a statement saying that people shouldn't kill people when they're accused of blasphemy. They should bring them to trial. So basically saying the problem is that she was stoned by vigilantes instead of being stoned by a Sharia court. So the entire Nigerian establishment failed to bring any kind of justice for this case, even when the murder was on video. It's on the internet. You can still find it today.
The Epistle of Paul.
So this is this is the reality in Nigeria today, that the Nigerian government is using Islamic terrorism to subjugate the Christian population and get its way. That's what's happening.
One of the things, getting back to the fact that that Nigeria was not included on the countries of particular concern list, is that there are other designations as well that don't seem as strong, but they seem noteworthy. The special watch list. I think there's entities of a particular designation as well, where Nigeria could have been listed, and the State Department chose not to even do that. Why do you think that is?
I mean, it's just so obvious at this point that the U.S. is using this list as a way to get favor with the Nigerian government. I think the U.S. government knows that the struggle of the 21st century will be a struggle for control of Africa between the United States and China. China is making major inroads into Africa, and the U.S. wants to stop that. And in order to stop it, they're trying to get allies like the Nigerian government on their side. And almost certainly, Nigeria was put on this list by President Trump in 2020. And almost certainly the Nigerian government told their counterparts in the US government, this is our price. We want off of this list. If you want our cooperation, this is what we want from you. There's absolutely no credible reason to keep Nigeria off the list. And we should know
that is crazy. You see, it's political. It's about control, about power. About money. So we're not concerned with placing them on the list, at least to sanction these countries to calm down and push back against the persecuted Christians. That's one positive step. I mean, the level of intervention that there is in Ukraine and Russia right now is mind-blowing. But that's not the only place where people are dying. In these countries, these Christians are being killed 20 and 15 by numbers, like literally go into your home and butcher. Everybody goes. That's what they're doing on a regular basis. You can read the news, you can read all the stats. It's heartbreaking, but that's still not a particular concern because their goal is political. The United States is more concerned about competing with China than saving the lives of Christians. They're more concerned about having their opponent given the boot or whatever, right? But they're not really concerning about saving the lives, and that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. It needs to be called out as well.
The U.S. has an independent commission for religious freedom, and they have said that they're outraged, and it's unexplainable that the U.S. did not put Nigeria back on the list this year.
And they used the word outrage. I mean, they actually used that. Yeah. I mean, it was very strongly worded condemnation that came out right after this was released, and that should say something, right? But as we close out here, and we look at this issue, what is your organization, Christian Solidarity International? What are you guys doing there in Nigeria? How are you responding to this? Because you've been very active in many places around the world.
We are very active in Nigeria. We have programs in several different states in Nigeria to help people, especially people who have had to flee their homes to escape from terrorist attacks. So we help people start new businesses. We help them plant farms. We help them get medical care if they've been wounded in terrorist attacks. We help children of displaced Nigerian Christians and others go to school. That's something that can be extremely difficult if you've lost your home in a place like Nigeria. But we're able to help them do that there. And we're campaigning. We're trying to get the Western world to notice what's happening in Nigeria before it's too late. So if people are interested in supporting this work or learning more about it, you can go to our US website, that's csi-usa.org, or we have a special website just for Nigeria. That's nigeria-report.org. And there you'll be able to see interviews with these two priests that I did this week.
Wow. CSI. Okay. Yeah, this is, guys, this is what's going on here. I think we've had enough. This needs to be brought to light, and my hope and prayer is that a change will come. A change will come, and these Christians need to be prayed for. Certainly helped financially as well, reached out in various ways by different means. I know God is in charge despite what is going on, but we do have a responsibility to do something to assist in as much as possible. And also, my question is to many of the Muslim Islamic faith. I would like to hear from you. Like, what is your faith doing concerning some of this? Since many of the persecutors are Muslims, which I don't personally believe all Muslims agree with this. But if your prophet is blasphemed or something like that, it's okay to kill the people who did the crime. Now, I know some will say that's not okay, and I've heard you, and you guys emailed me. Some of you are very nice, and I respect you for who you are, but I still got a lot of questions concerning your faith. I've read things in the Quran that does seem to give an air that anyone who does this against my God, against my religion, is blasphemy and deserve to die. And these things are carried out by these extremist Islamic groups around the world, and they're doing it primarily to Christians. My question is this really the case? And secondly, what are you guys doing to make a difference about this? How are you caring for these Christians? What is your organization doing? I really want to know. This will elevate a level of respect for me. I don't want to go into blaming game here because I know there's a lot more that I do not understand. So that's why I'm asking a lot more questions. Anyway, let's bring this thing to a close with a scripture. So if you are experiencing persecution of any sorts, I just want to pause here to give you a word of encouragement, telling you about what the Bible actually says. According to the scripture, in the book of Matthew chapter 5, in the Beatitudes, God tells us this: Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted the prophet which were before you. So, persecution is a real thing. But if you are dying or you are being persecuted, hated, abused, misused, misunderstood, maligned, rejected because you have faith in Jesus, the Bible says, rejoice and be exceeding glad. Your reward is heaven, is great. So be strong, my friend, no matter what is happening as a result of you believing in Jesus. Be strong, my friend, even when the enemies send their wild dogs after you, just because you choose to have faith in Jesus. Be strong, my friend, no matter how strong the enemy goes after you, even when the government doesn't understand you, when your case is not vindicated before man. God is in charge. No need to fear. Be strong, my friend. Christ is with you. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Maybe some of you that are watching might not be persecuting physical persecution, but maybe it's emotional. Maybe there are different ways Satan is going after you and your home. I'll say be strong, my friend. God is going to see you through. He's going to see you through. He sees what's happening. He takes notice. Continue to pray and trust and believe. But be strong. Go through what you're going through. Go through it. Go through it. Ask God for strength to get through it. But be strong. Eventually, He's going to get you on the other side. And He will vindicate your case. Be sure of that. Thank you so very much for listening, friends. Until next time, and as always, remember to look unto Jesus to live by faith. Have a good one. Bye.